High above the crumbling Reich, a duel for the fate of Europe is raging. On one side, a German legend, the sharp-nosed killer that has terrorized the skies since the first days of the war, the Messerschmitt Bf 109. On the other, the American thoroughbred, the sleek, long-range predator that arrived late to the fight but came to dominate it, the North American P-51 Mustang. This wasn't just a battle between two incredible machines. It was a clash of doctrines, of engineering philosophies, and ultimately, a fight that would determine the success or failure of the entire Allied bombing campaign. The Bf 109 was a seasoned veteran, but by 1944, German pilots had a special name for the P-51. They called it the Jagdflieger Schreck, the fighter pilot's terror. Why did this American newcomer inspire such fear? We'll break down the firepower, the high-altitude performance, the dogfighting tactics, and the one crucial factor that changed the course of the war. American fighter doctrine prized volume of fire. The P-51D Mustang was armed with a devastating battery of 6 wing-mounted .50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns. Firing at a high rate, these guns created a dense cone of destruction, shredding control surfaces and engines with remarkable efficiency. The Germans, on the other hand, prioritized hitting power, designing their fighters to destroy heavily armored bombers. The Bf 109G typically carried two 13mm machine guns over the engine, and most importantly, a motor cannon, a cannon firing through the propeller hub. This was usually a 20mm cannon, but some variants carried a brutal 30mm cannon designed to tear a bomber apart with just a few hits. Against a fighter, a single 20mm explosive round could be catastrophic, but it came with trade-offs. A slower rate of fire and less ammunition compared to the Mustang's deep magazines. For fighter versus fighter combat, the hail of .50 caliber slugs from the Mustang often proved more practical and deadly. Here the matchup becomes brutally one-sided. Early Mustangs with their American Allison engines were excellent at low altitudes, but were poor performers up high where the bombers flew. But a stroke of genius, born from British ingenuity, changed everything. Fitting the Mustang with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, built under license in the USA by Packard. The key was the Merlin's advanced two-stage, two-speed mechanical supercharger. This device compressed the thin air at high altitude, allowing the engine to maintain its power. While the Bf 109's Daimler-Benz DB605 engine was a superb power plant, its supercharger performance dropped off significantly above 20,000 feet. For German pilots tasked with attacking bomber formations at 25,000 feet, the result was a nightmare. As one Romanian Bf 109 pilot, Ion Dobran, recalled, at that altitude, they were barely hanging by their propellers, while the Mustangs were fast, agile, and completely at home. This high-altitude superiority allowed P-51 pilots to dictate the terms of almost every engagement. In a classic low-altitude turning dogfight, the battle was far more evenly matched. The Bf 109 was a smaller, lighter aircraft, and in the hands of an expert, could often outturn a Mustang in a prolonged, horizontal fight. Its controls were responsive, and it had excellent slow-speed characteristics. But American pilots were trained to avoid this exact scenario. The Mustang held the advantage in speed and energy retention. The doctrine was to use boom and zoom tactics, dive on the enemy from a higher altitude, make a devastating firing pass, and then use the P-51's superior speed and climb rate to get away, repositioning for another attack. A Mustang pilot who let himself get drawn into a slow-turning fight with a German ace was making a potentially fatal mistake. Compounding the Germans' problems was the catastrophic decline in pilot quality. By 1944, a new Luftwaffe pilot might have only 160 hours of flight time compared to an Allied pilot's 400. Facing superior numbers and better trained opponents in a fighter that was now outclassed at altitude, even the most experienced German Expert 10 were overwhelmed. This is the category that truly separates the two fighters. The Bf-109 was designed as a point defense interceptor, a short-range weapon to defend specific targets. Its combat range was around 600 kilometers. The P-51 Mustang, however, was the ultimate long-range escort. With its internal fuel tanks, plus the addition of 2 external drop tanks, the Mustang had an astonishing combat range of over 2,500 kilometers. For the first time, Allied bombers could be escorted all the way to Berlin and back. Before the P-51 arrived in force, the American daylight bombing campaign was on the verge of collapse. Unescorted B-17 and B-24s were being slaughtered. The Mustang saved the combined bomber offensive. Under the command of General Jimmy Doolittle, the Mustangs were unleashed, ordered to hunt the Luftwaffe to destruction. They didn't just defend the bombers, they cleared the skies, establishing the Allied air supremacy that was essential for the D-Day landings. In a one-on-one dogfight at 15,000 feet, an expert flying a Bf-109 could absolutely give a Mustang a run for its money. The German fighter was agile, well-armed, and a product of years of combat development. But wars aren't won in one-on-one duels. They are won by strategy, logistics, and technology. The P-51 Mustang was the strategically superior aircraft in every meaningful way. It had the engine to dominate the high-altitude battleground, the firepower to win the fight, and most critically, the range to take the war to the enemy's front door and break their air force. The Bf-109 was a legendary fighter, but it was a weapon fighting a defensive, losing battle. The P-51 Mustang was the plane that spearheaded the attack, the long-range lance that shattered the Luftwaffe and cleared the way for victory in Europe. It wasn't just a great dogfighter, it was a war winner. The Merlin engine in the Mustang is one of the greatest examples of Allied cooperation. What other wartime collaborations do you think were decisive? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the machines that made history.